I did not watch wrestling as a kid. I didn't like wrestling.
I always knew that I was going to be involved with it in some kind of way.
If you're on the indies right now and becoming a prospect isn't giving you like juice to turn up right now, then nothing will.
It will for some people, and it's for those people.
The proof is out there too from the academy. We've had some great names come out of it. Tiffany Stratton, namely.
She's just a natural athlete.
You're technically a Paul Heyman guy.
Paul changed my life.
No! Oh my God! Oh!
That's probably like the gnarliest bump I've taken so far.
It's like I'm in here with the Undertaker. He's not gonna have us look like shit. I ended up throwing Taker off that thing.
And I'm in the mode of wrestling because it's fun, because I'm good at it.
Man, just to keep doing what you're doing. Please, if there's anything that I can help out, or I'll watch a match and give feedback.
I don't think you know what you get yourself into.
Rewind, recap, relive. Woo! That's what the world is watching.
My first guest has been making his name known for 8 years now in the wrestling business. He is Second Wrestling's world champion and will be your savior. Please welcome David Ali.
How you doing?
Nice to have you here, David. Thank you for being here. My next guest is an absolute vet of the wrestling world. He's introduced himself by many names over the years. Former WWE US champ, TNA world champ. He's now paying all his knowledge forward with his wrestling training academy. Please welcome Ken Anderson.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nice to see you guys. And I will say I'm super underdressed. So maybe we should pause the interview. I can go throw a suit on or something.
I think that would be awesome. But next time, no.
I can just take the tie off, you know.
No, man, looks good. Keep it.
Thank you.
But no, thank you both so much for being here, taking the time. Ken, I really want to throw it to you first because I know you're fresh off an awesome match with Zilla Fatu. And I'd love to hear how that match was for you, being in there with not only, such a generational talent like Zilla, but also the history you share with his father, Umaga. What was that like?
A couple of years ago, I was in the ring with Jacob Fatu, and I remember feeling like chills at just seeing him and seeing the way that he moved then. That was probably 4 years ago, and thinking, man, he's just like Umaga. He reminds me so much of I believe it's his uncle. I believe Jacob Fatu is he's in the family somehow. And so I had never met Zilla, or if I did, I probably did actually meet, because I remember certain events, Eki would have his kids running around sometimes. So I probably met him when he was really young. But he's got it. He's so charismatic. The babyface fire that he has is not forced in any way. It's just it just oozes out of every pore of him. And putting the match together was fun, even. And he was asking me about, was my dad, did you and my dad talk stuff over? What did you guys talk about? And, just kind of like reminiscing about some old stories about his dad was really cool. And then getting in the ring and performing was, I loved it.
That's so cool. It must have been surreal to face both generations, but hearing that you went over and he was asking about his dad that's really sweet. That's awesome. And David, I want to say to you, we were talking before we went on, but huge congrats, fresh off your wedding. How are you feeling?
Thank you. I feel like I have superpowers, honestly, if I'm being honest. I don't know. I've talked about being married and just marriage in general, and I'm looking forward to what that's like getting married. It feels, I'm still on a high. So you're going to get like the happiest version of me that anybody's ever seen so far. So
that's good. Marriage is, I love being married, by the way. Like if you found the right partner, it's amazing. Every day is amazing.
Yeah. I definitely feel that 110%. Man, I'm excited to be a wife guy. I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait to bring her everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I always like to start these at the beginning and hear what it is that led you both into the world of professional wrestling. David, I'll go to you first. Can you talk about your journey and really what led you to it?
Um, uh, man, wrestling just always. I really hate that question nowadays. Just because it's just always. I have a boring story. I feel like it's just always been in the background somewhere. I'm 35, so like I grew up watching like late 90s wrestling. And whether it be like WWF or WCW, but it was always on somewhere. And I think um, even though there was a lot more time that I felt like I couldn't do it, I always knew that I was going to be involved with it in some kind of way. I just had to be. And lo and behold, like around 2016, 2015, wrestling school started being more of a thing that people talked about, and it wasn't such what felt like a hidden secret. And I found WWA 4 in Atlanta, and I was like, I'm going. I think I was 27, 28, and I was like, I better go now because if I don't, I'm never gonna do it. And like, I gotta at least try. Otherwise, like, I'll regret it for the rest of my life, and I'll probably end up being like a bag boy somewhere, or I would feel like unfulfilled to some degree. And I took off, and I had a fiance then. That's not my wife now. And just to show you how much things have changed in just 8 years, I took off. I went there, and I guess the rest was history. I learned from Era Fox, who runs the school down there, and he taught me everything from all the moves to how to move in the locker room, how to be professional, etiquette, and just all the things that I feel like green boys should know, like coming into the game.
Ken, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that journey and if you have a similar one or different.
Well, mine was different in the sense, different from David's in the sense that like I did not watch wrestling as a kid. I didn't like wrestling. I was one of those, I was in the camp of, it's all fake. And I happened to, I had a friend who was a huge wrestling fan. And one night he just like kind of forced it on me. He was like, we're watching wrestling tonight. And I was like, all right, whatever. And so it was on in the background. And then like, he's like, this guy right here. And then I heard the glass break. And, Steve Austin, I drove to the ring in a pickup truck and he had a six pack on his lap. And I just grew up in a small town where, everybody drives pickup trucks and drinks beer and just that anti-hero man against the boss. I was hooked on watching that right away. And I started watching every week, like reluctantly, like I'll watch just what Steve Austin does. And then I slowly got sucked into, well, Undertaker is pretty cool too. And then, slowly but surely, I was watching it. I was like, that's all I thought about. That's all we would talk about at work. I was a security guard at a nuclear power plant, armed guard. And we'd have to go sit in these boxes for an hour at a time. And then somebody would come and relieve you, and then you'd walk to another box and sit there for an hour, and like we had telephones and we would just call each other, hey, did you see what happened on Monday Night Raw last night? And then I was at a party one night and I overheard somebody talking about a friend of theirs was a pro wrestler. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, there's like wrestling schools you can go to. And it had never dawned on me how people would get into this line of work. And I left the party and I went home and I don't even think it wasn't Google at the time. It was like Ask Jeeves or something like that.
Yeah.
And I went on and I looked up wrestling schools. And I remember thinking, I'm going to probably there's definitely not going to be any wrestling schools local. So I'm going to have to go to one of the big cities. And I thought like New York, Chicago, or LA. And Chicago was about 3.5 hours from me. So I remember thinking right then, If I find a school in Chicago, I can go on, I work every other weekend. I can go on my alternating weekends. I can sleep in my car if I need to, whatever, to go to. So I called up a guy in the Chicagoland area, and he got me in touch with a guy in Green Bay who was just starting a wrestling school. I was his first student. So he brought me in. I did a little tryout in this old 16-foot low rider ring with floppy ropes and blood and duct tape and tears and rips all over the canvas. And I just remember like stepping through the ropes and being like absolutely mesmerized, like this is it. This is what I'm gonna do. And then, it was eight, 8 or 9 months of training, had my first match, and then I started doing the indies.
I feel like it'd be interesting to hear how you ended up at a nuclear power plant too, in wrestling. But that's so interesting. So both of you were just lured to it, yeah. And as soon as you got in, you knew this was the right move. Ken, to stick with you, so I don't know how many people know you were trained by the same guy who trained Brock Lesnar, right? You were more polished up by Brad Rangans at some point in your career. What was that experience like?
Oh, that was amazing. Yeah, I had been in the business for about 3.5 years, and I was doing extra work at WWE on the regular. Like every few months, I would be there. And I developed a little bit of a relationship with Brock. And I remember he saw me working out, and then he gave me Brad's number and said that Brad ran a camp every, like, I think once a year for about 3 months. And so me and Joe Hennig, who ended up being Curtis Axel, and a couple guys from Florida, went there and trained for 3 months, and it was awesome, like to take the basic knowledge that I already had and just like polish it up a little bit was really, I think it really helped me a lot. And I always tell my students like, once you don't, this isn't it. Once you get done training here, go somewhere else. Like get somebody else's opinion. Like
I hear so many schools, like, unfortunately, that do have that kind of like mentality of like train here and then like nowhere else. And I feel like that's limiting. So that's awesome to hear Ken say that. Um Fox was similar nature after a while too, especially when Nightmare Factory opened up, and it was kind of similar vibes. I went there and I learned with QT and I polished up, and I feel like every wrestler needs to like just keep learning because you're never gonna learn everything. So like, there's no sense in trying to learn from everybody you can.
I still learn stuff. Like I keep up on videos. There's a guy in Australia who does videos. I'm constantly like watching his stuff and getting new, like he does walkthroughs on techniques and stuff. So I learn stuff from my students sometimes. Like you said, I've been in the business for 25 years. I'm still learning. So
Well, Dave,
absolutely right.
so you're 8 years in now. What was it like when you first stepped in to train for the business? What was it like for you? Did you take to it easy, would you say? Or was it
Um, I don't know. So again, I'm only 8 years in, and that's like 3 minutes compared to like Ken's time of 20 years. Um, but I feel like I came in at an interesting time when it was transitioning from like an old school mentality to like kind of like the new flavor now. I feel like now it's way more, I wouldn't say friendlier, but like people are willing to work with each other more versus some I will use cutthroat type of mentalities that I came up with. But I know that when I started, I was introduced to paying dues, and that was my dad was in the Navy, so like working hard and like that kind of like mentality, it was something I was used to. So I really loved that part, if I'm being honest. When I first came in, like putting up the ring and like like that hunger is like it's not like anything else. Um, and it kind of I'm not gonna say I missed that fire because I still have that fire, but like those times were like some unique times because like you're just so like, oh, what is all this? And like the introductory to everything and just being like he said something interesting before about what would really turn him on to like wanting to like train to be a wrestler, like the griminess of like the ring and things like that. And that's kind of like what got me into it, like because the old school that they had at WWE for was in this building behind the strip club, and it had like pictures of like wrestling magazines, like just taped on the wall, and it smelled like sweat and marijuana and strip club, and it just had this grimy like Rocky feel, and like that kind of stuff. I felt like it felt like a brotherhood, like once we're all doing that kind of stuff together, like putting up the ropes, putting up the ring, helping each other with like your bruises and like learning how to like do things the wrong way but getting hurt in the process. That kind of stuff is like that's the kind of bond that I think it's is what's need to be reminded of these days.
Yeah, I definitely never go to experience all that for the first time again. And it's so cool to hear that those aspects though interested you both. So Ken, you've mentioned your training academy a few times now. I really want to dive into it. I've heard you say that the reason that you started it up, a big reason was to cut out a lot of the missteps that you experienced early on in your career. What were some of those missteps and what do you kind of teach your trainees now to avoid those?
Like I'm just going to use this as an example. I guess just figuring out psychology because like my trainers were awesome and they had a very good understanding of psychology, but there were, like I would go as I was doing extra work for WWE. Remember being in the ring once and working out with somebody, and I jumped out of the ring, and Val Venus was like, "Come here for a second," and he's like, every time you get punched, you kind of like put your face back there. So that's a very old school mentality. Like if you watch old school wrestling, it would be like punch, boom, put it back there. And he was like, get your hands up a little bit. Like you don't actually have to block it for real, but like it should look like you're trying to block it, like you aren't fighting. Just, little, that's the type of stuff I think that separates people from like pros, like true pros in the business. Um, just knowing what promoters are looking for, knowing what the WWE is looking for, in a sense. I mean, they don't even know what they're looking for. I remember I used to call Dr. Tom. He was the first guy that I worked with. Actually, Kevin Kelly was the first guy that I worked with who would bring me in for extra work, and then it was Dr. Tom and then Tommy Dreamer. I remember one time Dr. Tom, I said, Tom, what do I need to do? And he was like, I don't know. He's like, just keep working hard. But I'll tell you, if we knew, we would bottle it and sell it. But we don't know what we're looking for. We'll know when we see it, though. So you just have to keep like trying different things. So I guess just that kind of stuff, making sure that people are doing things the right way, their footwork is right, they're taking proper bumps, they're flattening their feet out. One of the things that I did a lot, my trainers always told me like flatten your feet out, but they never like stressed it. And so I hobble around to this day because I smashed my heels into the canvas for 18 years before I figured it out. Stuff like that.
Yeah. And the proof is out there too from the academy. I mean, you've had some great names come out of it. Tiffany Stratton, namely, is killing it right now on
Oh,
SmackDown, and followed in your footsteps too. Money in the Bank winner,
yeah.
like early on.
Dante and Darius from AEW. Julia Hart was one of my students.
Um, Stevenson, right? Bobby Stevenson or Gable Stevenson.
Abel Stevenson, yeah, he's been released now, but yeah, he was a student. Von Wagner, if you know from NXT.
Of course.
Cal Bloom was his name. So, and I've got some up and comers too. Like I got some people that are coming.
Yeah, I can't.
Um,
Was Tiffany, would you say she took to it well? Because she's like absolutely killing it right now on SmackDown.
Absolutely. She was she's just a natural athlete. So she's one of those, you show her something one time and you might have to offer a couple of corrections. She quickly figures it out and then she's able to just do that over and over again. The one thing I will say is that she didn't have the charisma that she has right now, or at least because she was more focused on the physical aspect, I think. So she wasn't putting a whole lot into the character work, but she was just quiet when she came to class, kind of kept her nose clean and just did her thing. So to see her now with that huge character is really cool. I've got her first promo she ever did,
Oh, that's
which, I
yeah. It's not what we're hearing.
hopefully one day she will give me but hopefully it'll be used in a documentary someday, like,
Yeah.
to show how far somebody can come.
No, I hope
You
so.
can totally tell though, just from watching her wrestle, that she's a natural, and you could tell her to do something and she could do it. She's definitely got like that. She's definitely got that edge.
She's I believe, a power lifter and a gymnast. So like those two things are, you know,
Yeah.
super strong.
Yeah.
Just knows exactly where. She reminds me of, like, she's a female AJ Styles, where, like,
Mm.
remember seeing AJ one time get backdropped and somebody like pushed him too hard on one side and he sort of like helicoptered in the ring and he was able to, like, he's like a cat where he just like flattens out and lands perfectly every time, even so.
Yeah, you could definitely tell. She just needed that little extra for that charisma. That's really cool that she started that. One day, I hope we do get to see that early promo. Um, David, we were talking a little bit before we went on. Big news recently for anyone on the Indies is the WWE ID
Mm.
prospect, and I'd love to hear from both of your thoughts. But David, you first. Being on the Indies right now, what does that mean for you? Does it give you something extra to strive after?
Um, I think for me, man, I feel like with me having only been wrestling for 8 years, I feel like there's been so many times already where like there's a carrot to dangle after or to chase after, that's being dangled in front of you. But I feel like this one is probably the best one that I've seen so far. I know for myself, just because of how old I am and the fear of aging out is like I was telling you earlier, it's definitely prevalent. Um, you're always looking for that next thing or the next excuse, if you will, to like get in with WWE. Um, and I think this one is probably like incredible. I had a tryout a few years ago, and it was right before COVID, and then it was right before mass releases. So like anybody that was there wasn't there anymore, and your name goes back to the back of the line or like lost in the shuffle somewhere. And I feel like if you're on the indies right now and just even the mere idea of becoming a prospect isn't giving you like juice to turn up right now, then nothing will.
Yeah.
Like we, I feel like a few years ago, those dark matches were something to look for, but those don't exist anymore. Getting on ROH is something to look forward to, but that's, you know, not as easy to get on or easy to be seen on as it is as Dark was. And I think I don't know, man. If you're not trying to turn up right now, then there's something wrong.
No, well said. And Ken, how about for you? I mean, you're churning out great names into the industry right now. So what did that mean for you when you heard that news?
I I love hearing stuff like that. I think any opportunity, any additional opportunity for people to have lived the life that I've been able to live and do the things that I've been able to do, like go for it. I'm very happy that they're now reaching, because like over the years there would be moments in time where even when I was doing my tryouts and stuff like that, right? Like, oh, they're not going to take indie guys anymore. They want guys that are brand new. They want athletes. It's always this. They're only looking for this. You had to be 6'2" and 250 pounds. You had to be, and just the fact that they're like opening the door for so many different people. Because if you look like that roster and the roster that they've had over the years is just like all shapes and sizes, comes from all backgrounds, all walks of life. Um, it's just, as David said, like if this doesn't light a fire under your ass to do something in the business, like you know what? It will for some people, and it's for those people. You know what I mean? Then it's
Yeah.
not necessarily for everybody. It's not for those other people that don't light a fire under their ass.
Yeah. No, well said. Definitely. I think it's definitely going to provide some motivation for the right people, like you're saying. And Ken, one fact that I wasn't aware of until I found doing research for this was you're technically a Paul Heyman guy, at least in OVW.
Yeah.
And talking about getting opportunities, I feel like that was a huge opportunity for you was when Paul came into OVW. Can you talk about what that felt like, getting that faith put into you so early on?
Yeah. Paul Paul changed my life, really. I met Paul at a WWE tryout. I was in the ring working out, and I remember there was some meeting going on where all the all the workers that were that were employed with the company were not there. And there was like 6 or 8 of us working out in the ring and just kind of tagging in and tagging out. And I remember Paul came and sat ringside with Jim Ross, and he was just observing. And then after I think I got in here for a little bit, I tagged out, and he was like, he motioned for me to come over to him. And he said, "Who trained you?" And I was like, "Well, I got trained by a couple guys in Green Bay. And then Brad Rangens, I went to Brad's school for 3 months." And he was like, "Oh, I know Brad." Like obviously he knew Brad. And so that kind of opened the door for me there. And he was like, "I want you to come back and cut some promos." And he really amped me up. He was like, he wanted me to do a babyface promo and a heel promo. So I'm like kind of thinking about what I'm gonna say. And for some reason, nothing happened that particular um, everybody got busy. So he did give me his number, and he said, "Call me on Wednesday or whatever when I'm back in the office." So I proceeded to call Paul for like the next year and a half and not get through to him ever. 'Cause that's just the way it is in the wrestling business. It was nothing personal. And then when I fast forward, I'm in OVW, and Paul would come down every few months and do promo class. So he would have us cut a promo. It would be just us, Paul, and a camera in a room, cut the promo. He would critique it, and then you'd go home that night and kind of rework it, and then come back the next day and do it again. And on the second day, I cut my promo. I remember the first time I cut my promo on Funaki, and he was like, "Nothing against Funaki, but like, don't you want to wrestle the Undertaker? What about John Cena?" Like, so I came back and I changed it the next day, and I remember I cut that promo, and he was like, "Okay, thank you." And I was like, "Any feedback?" "Nope, thank you, loved it." And I remember walking out there thinking like, this guy fucking hates me,
Yeah.
because like he could give me something. And that kind of happened every time that he came down. And then when Jim Cornette he paintbrushed Santino Marella around in the back. Um, like 2 days later, Paul Heyman's there for TV, and I was there relatively early, like right around noon, and he said, "Come here for a second, I need to talk to you." And then he said, "I've been a fan of yours since we met." He remembered the day that we met, where him and Jim Ross were sitting ringside. He said, I've been watching what you've been doing. And he goes, I'm going to do so much stuff with you over the next couple months that they're going to have to notice you. You will be the next guy out of here. And I just remember thinking like, okay, I'm not going to get excited because, you know, I just that's one of the rules in the business. Don't get excited until it's actually occurring, and then it can still be taken away from you. Um, and to his word, like OVW TV was an hour show or 50, 51 or 52-minute show, I think, with commercials. And of that night I had like 28 minutes or something like that on the TV show. And then every week, and then I started doing the announcing thing, announcing myself, and 5 weeks after we had that conversation, I was getting called up to SmackDown. Hey, they want to see you and they want you to do your gimmick. And I was just supposed to be there to do like a dark match. It was just an observation. And right before my match was about to go live, Dave Lagana came up and he said, "Hey, there's been a change." And I remember thinking like, "Oh, fuck, they canceled my match. They scrapped it. Okay, cool." And he said, "No, we have to come up with a finish for you because you're going over. This is going to be a televised match. It's going to be on Velocity, and welcome aboard." And that was my yeah. So yes, I am a Paul Heyman guy for sure.
Through and through after that. Yeah. That's insane.
You know,
Definitely believed in you and
and
gave.
then like he continued to sort of help me out. He helped me come up with the Kennedy because Vince told me that he wanted me to change my name, and so we kind of brainstormed for about an hour and came up with Kennedy. And then when I left WWE, even I remember going to TNA, and Eric Bischoff was like, "Look, I know that you were sort of frustrated with the way you were managed at WWE," and he's like, because everything is scripted at the time, like verbatim. Like if you missed a word, Vince was standing there going like, "Why'd you miss this?" Um, and so Eric was like, "Look, we're gonna write something for you. It's just bullet points. It's just a broad overview of where we need you to go." And so I would oftentimes call Paul Heyman and say, "Hey, here's what they have for me, and can you help me make sense of this?" And he would fire me off an email and rewrite what they had written for me. So he in a sense he was writing TV for TNA at one time.
That's a really cool fact to know. But it's so what a great tool to have in your back pocket. Paul Heyman, like one of the best to ever do it on the mic. Very cool to hear all that, though. David, I want to hear about you mentioned earlier WWE tryout briefly. It was around COVID. But what was that experience like for you? Did you walk away with anything in terms of advice or anything from that tryout?
Um, I walked out with a new rejuvenation for what I was doing. Um, at the time, I had done like a lot of extra work at a lot of different places, and it it was all starting to feel a little more like work to do. Um, it all started feeling like a little bit more like work than I wanted it to, and not about wrestling in the sense of like the athleticism to like, tell a story, those kind of things. Um, so stepping into the performance center and like getting to do the tryout and learning from like, because I got to have Regal, Robbie Brookside, Fit Finley. I got to have like some major dudes. Gabe Sapolsky was there. Um, like major guys, like sit there and like watch me wrestle. I got to wrestle 2 matches. I'm still That's still insane to me that I got to do that in front of Regal. Some of the most nerve-wracking things I've ever had to do in my life. But I remember the minute that we walked in, and they got everybody together. Regal, he tells everybody that I know you've heard a lot of stuff about us and that we want to change you and this, that, and the other. But all we want to do is take what you've learned and just turn it up to like the next level. And I was there for 2 days, and throughout those 2 days, I was just like hit over the head with like so much knowledge. And excuse me, I was fortunate enough to be there when they were trying out a different form of the tryout where um they had a thing called skull sessions where the two matches that we had, they would go back and rewatch the whole thing and like break down, this is why you do a headlock, this is why you do an ankle pick, like this, that, and the other. And like I would do this here and like this is where this came from. And I'm just like, and they encourage you to take notes. And I gotta tell you, man, I was running out of room, and it was so like, it was so insightful. And like, I learned so much about myself. There was like, so I, at the time, right before the tryout, again, it was during the COVID times. Um, I forget the exact reason why AJ Styles was out. But he was coming back and he was trying to like get some reps in and like just train or whatnot. And I lived in Atlanta, which is maybe about an hour and some change away from Cornelia, Georgia, which is not too far away from where AJ lives at. And that's where there's a little ring there where he like started wrestling at when he first started wrestling. So we would all meet up there, and I got invited to come train with him. So we trained a little bit over the summer, and I was doing dark matches, and he would always ask me, he's like, "Are you signing with them?" And I'm like, "No." "Are you signing with him?" "No." And eventually, like one day, it was honestly one of the worst days of my life professionally. Things weren't going good at training and like the shows that I were having, and I was kind of like when you're a wrestler, I'm not sure. Hopefully, it goes away like or somewhat away like after 20 years being in, but you always have these moments of like, why am I doing this? I should not be doing this. This sucks. I hate this. Like you go through those moments a lot. It's definitely in one of those moments. And AJ, he's like, "Hey, so I talked to some people for you, and I got you a tryout." And to say that I heard anything else after that was that was the most insane moment. And so going there, um, I remember the first match I had, I drop kicked the guy in the face. And he didn't put his hand up, and he's just bleeding. And they stopped the match, and I'm like, "Oh my God, this is the worst thing ever." And they let us keep going, but I call AJ, and I'm like, "Bro, I like killed this guy." And he's like, "No, no, 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 no. If anything, the guys that I'm wrestling in front of, they're gonna appreciate it being like wrestling, like being there with the things and not shying away from it and laying the things in and stuff." And again, I could go on and on, but I learned so much. And I feel like the appreciation that I have for it was just magnified. And like, it really shaped, I think, the wrestler that I am right now. So I'm incredibly grateful, even though nothing's come of it since. Hopefully that does change, but I wouldn't take that back for anything.
What a cool like milestone in your career, though. All of that. Wow. You said something interesting there, Ken. Do you still have those thoughts of why am I doing it after 20 years?
Um, no, no, I don't. I've gone through seasons in my career of I really love this. I'm passionate about this to what am I doing? Maybe I should try something else to loving it again. And right now I'm in love with the business, and I'm very happy with the way things are right now. Can I add something? Um, what David was talking about earlier with the tryout. I see so many people that work so hard and they get a tryout and then they don't hear anything from anybody, right? They don't get picked up, and it's sort of where that ends for them sometimes. And at that no is just no today. Like if you keep pushing and you keep working on it, I think I see too many people who are like really, really talented just sort of give up. Well, now what? Now what do I do? Now you work for the next one. And yeah, I want to stress to people to like just keep humping it, keep hustling, keep learning. A no today doesn't mean no forever. Just no today.
That's exactly AJ's sentiments, especially like when they were highly public about like only wanting athletes or like younger wrestlers. I called him. I'm like, bro, I'm 30. Like, what do I do? And he told me, he was like, wrestle every match like you're on Raw, wrestle every match like you're at WrestleMania. Don't stop, because the minute you stop, like they're gonna catch you and you're not gonna be ready. So like always keep yourself ready. And like that's the one thing I think about no matter what the card looks like.
Age and honestly, like all that stuff, like they're only taking athletes. You're too old. Talent cannot be denied, period. Like if they see something in you, that yeah, they might not be like that might not be their first choice to like take somebody that's 38 or 39 or whatever, but like it's happened before and it's gonna happen again.
They want a star. Am I correct? Like
Yeah,
they want a
that's
star.
what they're looking for. They're looking for somebody, they're looking for characters, really characters that can connect with the audience in a slightly different way.
Well, Ken, you definitely did that in your career because you were pushed pretty quickly into major feuds coming from OVW to the main roster. One I want to ask about in particular is the Undertaker feud, and really what you took away most from working with him.
Man, I just the first night I worked with him, I remember we were in Oklahoma City on a house show, and he just approached me in the locker room. He was like, "Listen, just listen to me tonight, okay? We're not going to talk. I'm not going to talk about it in the locker room at all. Just listen to me. If I tell you to kick me one time. If I tell you to punch me one time. Just listen to me and let's see how it goes." And so it was actually one of the most liberating, freeing experiences that I've ever had. I was just so, it's like I'm in here with the Undertaker. Like he's not gonna have us look like shit in front of these people. Like all I really have to do is when he tells me to punch him, I have a good, solid, good swing and a good punch. And yeah, I came back from that match and he was like, "All right, I like that." And then the next night he allowed me to add something to the match. I think I added in a boot wash that night, showed him how to take it and what to do um and just slowly but surely kind of like gained his respect. And most of the time, even pay-per-view matches, we had three pay-per-view matches that I like singles matches. I feel like we might have had some tags in other places, but we would go out and just work on the fly. Like a lot of that stuff was, we had some spots planned out, but a lot of it was just working because if you go out there and you map everything out entirely, people are going to be able to tell. They might not put their finger on it, but they're going to be able to like, oh, it just looks like choreography. And you're not connecting with the audience. You're not playing with their emotions. And really, that's what I think that's the art of the business. I mean, look, there's different forms of art, right? Like some people like the Cirque du Soleil sort of acrobatics and stuff like that. But I think that if you can do both and you can connect with the audience, like that's where you're gonna make money.
I feel like I just got to a place now, um, where like I'm so comfortable in what I'm doing that for the most part, when I do call a match, the only thing I call is like anything intricate, which might be like the end of a comeback or like the finish or like some double down or whatever like moment or something that we have. Like other than that, I'm just like, we'll wrestle and then what are you doing? And then like when to me when it got that easy, it just is it's such a load off. Like I get to have fun now and I get to enjoy what I'm doing instead of like being like, okay, I gotta be at this rope to do that thing to get here to the middle thing. And man, I feel like people are catching on to that now. And I don't know what's in the air, but like I'm loving it. I
Yeah, and you,
wrestled a few of your guys. Is JDX one of your
yeah,
guys?
yeah,
That's somebody who I had like I wrestled him at an unfortunate time because we were supposed to wrestle for a belt, but I had the worst back spasm ever in the universe, and I was in like a back brace, and it was very limited. He took super good care of me, but we had like no match put together, but like we are familiar with ourselves enough to like put something together pretty easy, and it was just those things like we wrestled for a little bit and then we knew what we were doing to like to get home. And so if it's in the
yeah.
air at your school, I can say that much.
Thank you, man. It's I'll tell you, working that way allows you to focus on especially if you have your fundamentals down, really, really sound fundamentals. It just allows you to like you're not. I think people try to get too cute. They try to get too fancy and which I get. I understand that you want to have that. Like everybody wants to have Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker WrestleMania, whatever it was, 25 or whatever, 25 and 27.
Yeah.
Um, but just eh, I see this in class when we'll have match nights, and I usually give them like 45 minutes to put their matches together. And then there's nights where I just say, all right, you and you, get in the ring. Let's go. Give me 10 minutes, and they go, even if it's somebody that's very, very new, who you, I might have second thoughts about putting them in a match like that or putting them in a situation like that. It always goes well. And it always ends up being like one of their best matches because like you said it perfectly. Like it's freeing. It frees you.
I I had a match with one of my buddies at a promotion and I inadvertently pissed him off so bad. And he was my vet by like maybe, I don't know, maybe like 3 years or so. And he was somebody I definitely looked up to. And he's like, I'm like, so what are we supposed to be doing? And he's like, oh, wait till we get out there. I'll tell you when we're out there. And I'm like, the most nervous I've ever been because I'm like, man, he's either gonna shoot on me real bad or he's gonna like maybe look dumb or whatever. But again, he was my vet, so he knew me better than I knew myself. So we went out there, we wrestled on the fly, I just listened, and when we got back, our agent was like, "That's the best match I've seen you guys have," and it was because like we were freed and like we weren't strapped to anything.
Yeah. You're able to like really, really focus on your character and who you are and connecting with the crowd and listening to them. Then, okay, what spot's next? Is it this duck or what? Is it this reversal or,
A match that I assume had a bit more of that spot calling choreography was the last Ride match you had with Undertaker. And that must have been so cool sharing the grand stage with him after earning his respect, slowly over time. What was that like? Any specific memories from that one?
the last ride
Laughter.
specifically?
Yeah.
So, we had we were standing, this was during the day, and I think Michael Hayes was our producer, and it was me, Taker, and Michael standing by that entryway because there was like this big scaffolding that connected over the walkway where you came out. And Michael was like, "Do you think you could take a choke slam off there?" Or like we're figuring out like what bump I can take. that's going to be impressive. And I remember Vince came by and Michael just said, "What do you think about a choke slam off there?" And Vince just stopped for a second. He looked up there and he goes, "It would be far more impressive if Taker went off there." And then remember, like he just looked at him like, "You motherfucker." And Vince goes, "You you want me to go up there? I'll jump off there." And, no, I'm good. And then we came up with, I ended up throwing Taker off that thing. Now, fast forward to the match while we're doing it. I remember throwing him off the edge, and there was like two mattresses stacked up, like these two big crash pads, right? And they were hidden behind some barricades, so the fans couldn't see it. And I remember looking over at him. They wanted to get that camera shot, and I heard Vince, "God damn it, take a different angle." Because if you watch the tape back, they zoomed in. The crane cam came up and showed Taker basically laying on these mattresses, like, and for a really, really long time too. It was brutal.
No, that's what you don't want.
Yeah, but I could hear Vince like, "God, what are you doing? Take a different shot."
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well,
No, that was a ton of fun. Tons of fun. All those matches, my first match experience I had with Taker, or my first pay-per-view match, um, I don't think it had a stipulation. I think the first one was just a one-on-one. The second one was the first blood match, and then the last ride match. That first one, again, I'm just listening to him, and he's down on his knees, and he goes, "Give me a pile driver," and I was like, uh. So I'm thinking like, oh, he's gonna backdrop me out of it, right? Like I'm gonna start pull him in, and I'm standing there, and I'm waiting for him to like backdrop me. And he goes, "God damn it, give it to me!" And I went, "Oh, oh," and like he's a heavy dude, he's 270 pounds. So I fucking pinched his head so tight between my legs and made sure like that I held him up with, as much as I could with my arms. I gave him the pile driver. I come to the back after the match, walk through the curtain, and Vince goes, "Come here." And I walked over to him and he goes, "Listen," he goes, "I know where that came from. I know Taker told you to do that. Don't ever do that again." Like, okay. So he's like, and Vince even said right there, he's trying to get you over. He's going out of his way to make sure that you get over. Nobody's allowed to do that. I allow two people to do pile drivers in this company, and you're not one of them. He was like super cool about it, and he wasn't an asshole about it, but that was interesting.
that is interesting. It's cool from both sides that Taker is really trying to get you over with that too. Well, in a similar vein, David, you got to be in a match, not a last ride match, but a casket match, which I think is very unique for the independents. And I'd love to hear what that experience was like for you.
Um, that entire experience was it wasn't supposed to happen. It all kind of happened on accident. So the promotion, Southern Honor Wrestling out of Canton, Georgia, that's probably the biggest show in the state. Um, I was their longest reigning champion at one point, and then I moved to Chicago, where I'm at now. In the meantime, they have built up this champion, this guy named Judeus. He works for NWA sometimes.
I think
Um,
so.
right, he's a huge guy, like Undertaker vibes. Just like menacing looking, huge guy. They built him up to be like this monster of like a champion. He beat everybody, and he was beating all the former champions. So they have like their form of the Royal Rumble that gets you to their uh their anniversary show, right? So I won the Rumble Jack. That's what they call the Royal Rumble. I came back and won that, and I was supposed to fight him at the show after that, and I was okay with that. And they were like, actually, we had this idea. What if you come back for a tag match? and then he beats the shit out of you there. Excuse my French. From the South. Um, and then we have a casket match at the anniversary show. And as soon as I heard casket match, I I'm a mark for gimmick matches. Like I want to do them all. Like that's what like ladder matches, like war games, anything on the cell, anything in the cage. Like I love those kind of things, especially if there's like a story attached to it, because I get to like I get to be in it, and that's when I love wrestling the most is when I feel like it's real, but like we're both on the same page and like everybody's like with it. Like that's what I love about all that. So he said casket match. I said, bet, I already know the finish. And I told them because I was like, casket match, that means you have to get in the casket, obviously, and they close the door on top. Right. He does the Razor's Edge as his finisher. And as soon as they were like casket match, I'm like, he's got to do that to me to win the match. And they're like, Dave, I don't know if you know what you're talking about here, man. That guy's like 7 foot tall. Like, where are you gonna do it at, like, to get into the casket? And I'm like, so I've wrestled this guy like a jillion times too at this point, and like I've taken that move like the same amount of times. And this guy is like extremely safe with it. Like he could do it in his sleep if he wanted to. So like we plan this match and it's like it's the main event. So like it's got all like the shenanigans, it's got the manager, it's got the teammates, it's got like the all the hopes and the falsies that you could ask for. And we get to this casket and they didn't know how they were going to make this casket and him do that to me into the casket without me dying. And I didn't know either. I was just like, look, that's the finish. You guys figure it out. So they actually built a large casket for him to fit into so that way, could, tease him going in there and me like closing it. And they were able to put pads at the bottom that were the same color. They were all black pads. So I was like, perfect. And we didn't walk it because I was like, let's just save that for then. I don't need to do that more than once in my life. So we get to that moment and he throws me in there and it looks great. And it didn't feel great at all. But it looked great. And they were so worried about like me dying, and I really appreciate that. And they took really good care of me. But I when they asked me why are you trying to do that to yourself? I'm like, because it's gonna be a great moment. It's gonna be a great moment for him. It'll like solidify like this move is like the move that's like the move, like he did it to this guy in the coffin, and like they built me up to be a problem there. Like I was like I said, I was like the longest reigning champion there. So like I was like he needs to kill me, like, and hopefully it looks good enough, and it did. But that was probably like the gnarliest bump I've taken so far.
Sounds brutal, but I love the backstory because I did just watch that casket match too, and I love to hear that they actually built a custom one. That's awesome.
Yeah, that
Looked
they
right. It looked great.
it man, it did. And sometimes I watch it just like on repeat because I just like a body that just just stop being a person.
You know, for a little bit, yeah.
But like the best part is like the fans like it was I'm up in the air and they know what's getting ready to happen. And like they're still like, maybe he hits R2, he gets to reverse it, maybe something like that happens. And then I hit and they just like all hope just leaves their body. Oh, that is what I live for. That's why I love this. And it I wouldn't do that on every show. And I wouldn't recommend any wrestler doing that at any show, and unless like it's completely up to themselves, obviously. But like they did such a wonderful job. Like if I'm known for anything in wrestling, it's probably because of what I did there. And what I did there helped me get on the darks and helped me get WWE tryout. It helped me meet AJ. It helped me do anything that anybody knows me for. So for them, I was like, you get a limb. So there you go.
Well, another thing where the energy was wild was Ken. I want to go to your big WrestleMania 23 moment. That energy was on another level when you're standing up there holding the briefcase, knowing that you were going to win that match. Was there an extra oomph on the Kennedy announcement heading out there?
Uh, no, I don't think so. Like I honestly, I feel like at the time I was just like so confident, and there was never like an extra anything. It was like I feel like at the time I was just getting that same performance every time that I go out there. I think David said something earlier about like, just wrestling, treating every match like it's WrestleMania. Like if you do that, then when those moments occur, it's just like I've been here before. It feels like you've been there before.
Yeah.
I remember looking out of the curtain during the day. I was standing up on the stage. We are at Ford Field and like, wow, this is crazy big. And then when I walked out, it just looked like a really full, like 16,000, 18,000 seat arena. Like it didn't look like there was 80,000 people there. And then wrestled, and I went back, went up to there was like a luxury box, a row of luxury boxes that they had for family members
Mhm.
and the workers to go up. And I went up there, and it was then that I looked down and saw like this giant sea of people and the tiny little ring in the middle of it all. And I was like, oh my God. Then it was like then that it dawned on me what I'd just done.
Did you get kind of like sort of like a tunnel vision where you don't see anything but like what's in front of you? Like,
Yeah, it was weird. More so in that match, just because there actually were so many people there. And it was kind of a strange match. Like I can't stand watching it back because it's just like so much stuff that doesn't make any sense. Like it's just one, oh fuck, why did I do that? Oh God, that looks terrible. Like after another, after another, after another. But usually you're listening to the crowd and you're listening to the people, and in a situation like that, you're just literally you have to paint by numbers because you got 8 people that all have to do these dangerous stunts in rapid succession. So not as much of a listening and enjoying and taking it in. Although there was one moment I rolled Hornswoggle off the ladder. Hornswoggle and I had a moment, and I ended up picking him up. I was up on the ladder. I picked him up and I gave him the Finley roll off the ladder, and he kind of rolled. He took it and rolled away from me and rolled out under the rope in the corner. And then I had to go. I think Finley came and beat me up for a little while. We had a little spot, and then I was finally able to. I took a bump, and I was near him, and I was like, "Hey, man, you okay?" He was like, "Yeah, man, you okay?" And it was just like just this moment. We're in front of 83,000 people. This is my buddy. We kind of broke in around the same time. He credits me with like sort of training him, I guess. 'Cause, I would help him out. We would be on the same indie shows and I'd sort of help him out. But we just had this like moment in front of all these people live around the world, biggest stage in wrestling. Yeah.
Yeah, that is an insane spot. I've heard that was his idea too. I've heard him say that he wanted to take that off the ladder.
It was. Yeah. They wanted me to give him like a power bomb or something like that off the ladder. And he was like, "Hey, you think you can do your deal off there? We can try." And yeah, we figured out a way to make it make sense to some degree.
Yeah. Do you have any memories of that one spot that happens in the match that ends with Edge getting stretchered out with Jeff Hardy? I don't know if I know you said you don't like watching it back, so I don't know if you've seen it anytime soon that match, but I always wondered what was up with that spot because clearly like one of the biggest spots of the match, and like I said, yeah, it ends with Edge kind of being a non-factor.
Yeah. That's one of the things that it drives me crazy about the match is like, doesn't Jeff pulls out this tallest ladder out of any ladder. He literally could have done both. He could have grabbed the fucking title or grabbed the briefcase and taken like it's stuff like that. David talked about this earlier about having those matches where you're able to, the casket match, right? They give you this task, like have a casket match. And to a promoter, that's just like, I don't know, it sounds like it would be a cool match. Do this. And for a wrestler, especially like if you're trying to tell a story, it's like, okay, how do I make this work? How do I make sense of this
Mhm.
and tell it so that it's believable, that people will get behind it? Um, yeah. So that's one of the parts of that match that's sort of like crazy to me is like, why didn't Jeff just grab the briefcase and then do the thing?
Doesn't make sense. Yeah. Well, I could ask you guys a ton of questions, but I want to respect for your time here. David, definitely want to start to wind it down. So you are the current second wrestling champion, like I mentioned, but I'd love to hear what are some other short-term goals that are on your radar, maybe the WWE ID prospect like we talked about, or anything else that comes to mind.
Right now, Ken was talking about like going through seasons of wrestling, and I feel like I'm in that same part that he's in right now. Like I'm just right now, my main goal is to wrestle as many people as I can, as many different ways as I can, and just to like get the full experience of like what this really can be, you know. I feel like I was I'm really good friends with GPA and Laney Luck out here in Chicago. And
She was on,
sometimes I'll attend. I'm sorry.
Lainey was on the show. She was on the show a while ago.
Oh, she's dope. She was Heather's bridesmaid. So
Wow. Oh, cool. That's a
yeah,
cool.
he was one of my groomsmen. So that's how close we are. But they teach at a freelance academy, and I was attending one day, and we all had a conversation with some of the younger kids that are there about making sure you're wrestling for fun first, and don't worry about a contract until later, until like you get like what's going on, because you start worrying about a contract, you're gonna hate everything you do and everything that happens because it's not gonna drop in your lap. I mean, for some people it does, but like for most people it doesn't. And I feel like I got out of that mode of like everything I do is to get a contract, everything I do is to get a contract, and I'm in the mode of like wrestling because it's fun, wrestling because I'm good at it, wrestling because I know that I could tell stories, and that's what I like to do, and I have the freedom to do that now. So, um, my main goal, I guess, to sum it all up, is to wrestle as much as I can before like until something cool happens or until I hang up my boots. So anything's possible. I've learned that from my 8 years. Anything's possible.
Yeah. It's been really cool just hearing a glimpse of that. I mean, good luck with everything that you just said. Um, and so, Ken, for you, like we said, you're training the next generation at the Academy School for Wrestling. What are some goals for you that you still have? Do you have some long-term or short-term ones for the school or for yourself?
We're just trying to grow the school and trying to expand, making it a little more of a full-time thing where I just want to have a place where people can, if you want to spend 12 hours a day there working on stuff, you can do that. And like we're working on building up a little gym and having a promo area and things like that, a little podcast area. So we just moved into a brand new space, so we're pretty excited about that. We're working with a new small business company. Yeah, just I want as many people to experience like what I've this business is really, really amazing. It's fun. I've gotten to see the entire world. large portion of it. I met some great people. I want as many people to experience that as possible.
And I'm so excited to see what the future holds for the school and for yourself. And you've given some awesome advice so far, really. You two are great. Do you have any last words of wisdom for David, Ken?
Man, just to keep doing what you're doing. It sounds like you've got like a really good head on your shoulders. And if there's anything, I'll send my number. Please, if there's anything that I can help out, or if you got any questions at any point, I'm happy to always give feedback. I'll watch a match and give feedback. Just keep doing what you're doing, man.
Thank you. I'll definitely utilize that. I don't think you know what you get yourself into.
Hey, I'm up for the task.
Thank you both so much. This was so much fun.
Yeah, thank you, Jonah.
Rewind, recap, relive. Woo! That's what the world is watching.